Excellent. So one of the questions which I noticed always comes up, especially before the end of a retreat, is just know how much effort one should put into meditation, if any at all. What type of effort? Why does this work and that doesn't work? And it was something which certainly concerned me when I was a young monk. You saw the importance of right effort. That was the word they used over in the Eightfold Path, the usual translation. The Pali word was vayama, and sometimes it didn't kind of fit with all the idea of letting go, renouncing, realizing you don't control things. Is like effort, another form of becoming a control freak. And so you put that aside for a while, and just to know what works in the meditation. And one of the similes, which I haven't given yet, but which was a kind of an important one, was, say like tomorrow, you have to get to the airport, just by yourself, not in a big bus. So you order a taxi, and the taxi comes here, and they said, no, this is your ordered taxi. Where do you want to go? And you've just been on a retreat. So you say, oh, please take me to the airport, but please don't drive too fast. I'm very peaceful, very sensitive, and don't sound your horn so much. And I'm a Buddhist, so if anybody else wants to come in front of you on the freeway, please let them. I'm kind, I'm caring. And don't drive around corners too fast. I've just been on a retreat. Even my body is very sort of supple and doesn't want to be just treated violently. And if you're just a few minutes late, that doesn't matter, because I can always, even if necessary, even take a later flight or something. So, but just don't make me tense. I've just been on a retreat, okay? So drive quietly, and please turn your radio off, and don't talk so much, because I'm very sensitive. I like peace and quiet. And then, even before you get to the gate at the front, the taxi driver throws you out and says, look, if you're going to be like that, I don't want to take you. And the taxi driver said, look, I know how to get to the airport. You give me those instructions. Fine, now be quiet. The taxi drivers here in Perth know very easily how to get to the airport. There's only one airport, so they can't get confused. And there's all these signs everywhere. And sometimes there's Google Maps. You can press something and find the best way. You don't really need to give instructions. But the point is that that's so similar to when you start meditating. You tell your mind, okay, sit down. Ajahn Brahm said, don't even have to watch the breath. Just relax. Be peaceful. Make peace. Be kind. Be gentle. Relax to the max, okay, mind? And if this happens, we do that. If that doesn't happen, we do something else. It doesn't matter. We're not here to achieve anything. We're here to let go of things. Now do you understand why your mind throws you out? You can kind of understand where that comes from. But if you want to have some peace in your mind, to create that strong mindfulness and to allow the mind to go deep into stillness, that sort of coarse form of effort is obviously not required. Instead, sometimes what I do, I just bring up the ideal of peace. Not the idea, the ideal of peace. What is peace? Do you know what it's like or what it feels like? And a good example of that is that time when I was in Singapore, and it was around Wesak time, a bit before, a couple of days before, but there was one of the members of the Buddhist Fellowship in Singapore said he was running a school, a Buddhist school for kids. Can I come and teach the kids something about Wesak? Now, of course I said yes, but my problem was sometimes I'm not careful enough, I don't make enough plans. I didn't ask him, what type of school is it? Only when I got there I found out. It wasn't like kindergarten, it was like pre-kindergarten. And there was little small kids. And there was actually kindergarten kids as well. And they wanted me to teach them about Wesak. So how can I teach them about Wesak? So I teach them the Four Noble Truths, dependent origination, the anicca, dukkha, anatta. And they were 3 or 4 years of age. And I thought, my goodness, there's no way they can understand that. So instead, and this is why I kind of like, being a monk who doesn't make plans. It allows you to innovate, allows you to try something new. And so, in the main little hall, it's like a meeting room, where this Buddhist school was, it was called Little Gems. And in that schoolroom, there was a very beautiful Buddha statue, just like that one, only it was in the meditation pose. That one over there, they say it's asking the earth to prove the Buddha deserves to be on that seat where enlightenment was about to happen. And that was just the myth of the mudra, but the meditation statue of the Buddha. I can't see there if it's the hands of it, one over the other. But the meditation pose is actually very well known, and that was a big statue in this room which the school displayed to all the kids. So I made use of that. First of all, I said, now what happens on Wesak Day? And it was the time when the Buddha was born, became enlightened, gave his first sermon, and passed away. Now, it was not the first sermon, so the first sermon was done on... When was the first sermon done? We celebrate it in about a week's time. Asalha Puja, the beginning of the rains retreat, the first rains retreat. But I won't go there at the moment. Just the Buddha's born, became enlightened, and finally passed away on Wesak Day. So I said to the kids, according to the legend... You don't have to argue whether the legend's true or not true. According to the legend, when the Buddha was born, he came out of his mother's womb and he immediately stood and he made 7 steps. And at the end of the 7 steps, he put his finger up and said, this is my last birth, and right now I'm the chief in the world. Okay, kids, line up. So these little 3 or 4-year-olds lined up. Said, okay, imagine you're the Buddha just born. You make 7 steps mindfully, and they could do that very easy. I said, put your finger up, not that way around, the other way around, please. You know what I meant, didn't you? When you put one finger up the other way around, it's very rude. But I said, just this index finger and one finger up, and then to 7 steps, and then to say, this is my last birth, I am the chief in the world. And they could all do that. Because what I remembered when I was a young kid, the first year at primary school, I remember my teacher, I remember clearly, they said, okay, all you kids, stand up, imagine you're a tree in the forest. Put out your arms, you're a tree in the forest, and the wind is blowing, and you're swaying this way and that way. That was such a good little teaching. I remembered it, even now when I'm 72, almost 73. Because that imagination, I could participate, I could relate to it. I didn't need to think it, I wasn't being tested on it. It was just being a tree, the best you possibly could. So those little kids, they took those 7 steps, and it was like they were being the little Buddha or the Bodhisattva just when it was born. Okay, now that happened in Lumbini. And now, 35 years later, the Buddha was in Bodh Gaya, and you can see how he was sitting. So, kids, get a cushion and sit like that. Put your bottom on the cushion, your right leg, your right foot over the left foot, or just on the ground like this, like my posture, or like the Buddha's posture. You can see there a full lotus. Straighten your back, put your left hand on your lap and your right hand on top of the left hand with the thumb slightly touching. And they could all do that. And straighten the back, tuck the chin in, close the eyes, and just start watching your breathing. You know, the imagination, I don't know if they could watch their breath or they didn't watch their breath. I said, if you can't, just imagine you're doing it. And that actually reminded me, I'm off on one of my tangents again, about one of these students. He was a Westerner, quite rebellious, and he said he could never watch his breath. When he was told to watch the breath going in or watch the breath going out, he said he just couldn't do it, no matter how he tried. And then one day his teacher told him it's a beautiful technique. He said, okay, just sit down in meditation posture, close your eyes and be comfortable, and then imagine you're watching the breath. What would it be like if you were watching the breath? Use your imagination. And even though he was in his 30s, he could do that. He was imagining his breath going in and imagining his breath going out. He said, just carry on doing that for a couple of minutes, imagining his breath going in, imagining his breath going out. And after 2 minutes, the teacher said, what are you watching? And he had to admit it. I'm watching my breath. That was how he got to see his breath. Not trying to watch it, but imagining he's watching it, and then noticing the difference between the imagination and reality when he had his eyes closed. Just disappeared. He said that's how he learned to watch his breath. He sort of went past a psychological block. He believed he couldn't watch his breath. And so his teacher said, just imagine you can. And he could do that. And then the next step from imagination to reality was such an easy step to take. That's why I often encourage you to actually use things like imagination. Even with nimittas, I talk so much about them on this retreat. Imagine you close your eyes and you're getting pretty peaceful. Just imagine you can see a nimitta. How you'd think it would be. And imagine it. Imagine the peace, the happiness, the joy of seeing a nimitta. You're not really seeing one, so you don't need to worry about excitement or fear. It's only imagination. Just imagine it. And as you're watching it, after a little while, it becomes a nimitta, a real one. Check it out. It's like a little sidestep, a very skillful means. If you doubt me, do you remember that type of meditation on what we call kasina meditation? And kasina meditation is where you can imagine a color. You just imagine it. Sometimes to help the imagination become strong, you have a little cardboard piece and you put a little circle on there, say a blue circle, if that blue is your favorite color. And you just stare at that blue circle. Then after a while you close your eyes and you imagine that blue circle even with your eyes closed. And if that doesn't hold, if it starts to vanish, then you open your eyes again and stare at the blue circle again. And then after a little while, close your eyes and you train yourself to be able to see that blue circle as stable and as clear as with your eyes open. And that becomes the start of a nimitta. After a while, that imaginary, ordinary circle of color becomes bright and brilliant. It becomes a nimitta. That's called the kasina meditations. I must admit, there's only one lay person I knew who developed that, and it was quite clear to me the reason why he could develop that, because he'd been doing that in his past life. For him, he was on a train, and there was one of the advertisements on the top of the train and the inside, and it was like a lot of blue colour in it. And he said he got so attracted to that colour blue that, he stared at it and he kind of went right into it. He wondered what the heck's going on, and he discovered that's like a classical nimitta meditation, kasina meditation, which leads to nimittas and from there to the jhanas. So he was really good at that, and he's the only one I know who could actually do that, and do that quite easily. But anyway, it just emphasizes the use of imaginations. You can sustain them and from there create a mental image. And so with these kids, I said, well, there you are, just imagine you're watching the breath. And I took it further. I said, imagine this is Wesak Day. And imagine you are enlightened now. You little kids, fully enlightened. And because they've been around Buddhist temples and heard their parents talking about Buddhism, they had some idea of what enlightenment would be. I suppose you're now fully enlightened. What does it feel like? Have you any worries? I said, no. Perfectly at peace. Are you worried about being judged or assessed? I said, no, we're free. Are you worried about getting sick? No. The Buddha sometimes would get sick, but he wouldn't suffer at all. Are you worried about success in life? No. We're enlightened. We don't have anything to achieve anymore. Are you worried about being rejected by people? No. Just we notice how if we want to be alone, we can easily be alone. And if we can help so much other people, we'll never ever be rejected. Are you worried about where you're going to sleep at night? No, we can sleep anywhere. You're the Buddha. Imagine that. And all their worries. Are you worried about violence, maybe for one of your elder brothers or a bully at school? You know what it's like when you're kids. And your kids, even the male kangaroos, when they're growing up, they will fight. It's almost like a male thing. It's not just human beings. And then he said, no. Are you worried about maybe as a girl you're not going to be beautiful enough? No. All those worries which can consume young people's lives, those little kids, they were free of all of that. And because they were imagining they were the Buddha. And after a short while, they got so peaceful. Because for a young kid of that age, imagination is very possible. And it's very easy to do. All they needed is me to make up these visions and ideas for them. And they really got into it. And the surprising thing was, for me anyway, it wasn't just the kids who got into it. And all the teachers, they had their eyes closed too. And were imagining they were the Buddha. And I said, it's such an easy meditation to do. Sometimes we call that Buddhanusati, the reflections on the Buddha, but you don't just do chanting or have some other sort of ideas you were given by somebody else. Imagine what it must be like to be totally free. There's nothing you need or want in the whole world. Totally relaxed, not afraid of health, because that's one of the things with when you get some very good meditation. It is amazing what you can do for your own health. I have not told this story yet, but I love telling it. I usually tell this towards the middle or end of a talk, when people are getting a bit drowsy. Because when you're giving a lecture or a talk, it gets so boring and people get sleepy. So sometimes I introduce this. It was the time when, as a monk, over here in Australia, I got food poisoning. And it's what we call an occupational hazard. Because sometimes I'm not quite sure what food you give me. Sometimes people give me some food and they say, oh, this is really good for you, Ajahn Brahm. It may be good for you, but maybe it doesn't fit me. So these days I'm very careful of the food. And what happened when once when I was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, I don't know what food they gave me to eat, but those days I just would eat anything. I thought that's the job of a monk, just to be grateful, whatever food you give me. But then I got very sick. This wasn't a food poisoning yet, it was just some sort of stomach upset, a big stomach upset. And I was giving a talk in, it was in KL, what was the venue? I forget now the venue. But it was about 2,000 or 3,000 people were sitting down to listen to the talk in a big hall. And as I was giving the talk, towards the end, my stomach was just really getting very sickly. And then towards the end of the question time, I said, I think I better leave now. I didn't explain why I needed to leave. I needed to go to the toilet. And then they said, oh, you know what you say? Oh, please, just one more question. And that was one too many, because then I kind of answered that question very quickly, and then I said, I really do need to go now. And so I started walking, and when I was still on the stage in front of about 3,000 people, and not recorded on video, projectile vomiting. And everybody saw it. It was very dramatic. But that was such a wonderful thing to do. I never regretted that at all. Because then when I said, look, I can't eat that food, they actually believed me for a change. Instead of just thinking, oh, you're just being picky, being choosy. A good monk will eat anything. Yeah, I could eat anything. I can put it in my mouth, but it comes out pretty quickly and violently. And so from that day on, it was really good. When I went to Malaysia, they'd ask me, can you eat this, can you eat that? They started caring for me. But even though that people care for me and they try to give me, what I can eat, that sometimes you get it wrong, or sometimes people put things in there which don't really belong in there. Because I remember once when I went over to Canada, and the food which they gave me, actually Ajahn Brahmali told them, this is the sort of food which Ajahn Brahm likes, shepherd's pie. That's an old English dish. And so I was given all this spicy. I'm not Sri Lankan, okay? I'm not just criticizing Sri Lanka, but I just can't eat that sort of spicy food. And they had so much spicy food, but then they had one plate of shepherd's pie. I thought, oh, I can eat something today. I don't even know what shepherd's pie is. It's got this topping of mashed potato, and they got the, I think, the lamb or something underneath, or whatever it is. And I thought, oh, I can eat this. And it looked like a shepherd's pie, and the top was potato. But when I dug inside, it was Sri Lankan curry again. Hidden by the mashed potato. But anyhow, so sometimes you don't know what you're eating anyway. So in this particular time, I think, I don't even know what it was. But when I went back to my cave afterwards, oh yeah, I haven't fallen off. That's fine. It is on. Yeah, okay. You pointed to this, I thought it had fallen off or something. Okay. So when I went back to my cave, that was when the food poisoning really started to hit. Oh, you're putting your hand in. Oh, Freddie, be brave. And when the food poisoning started to hit, he had these terrible cramps, involuntary and really painful. I mean, really painful. Ah! And I couldn't stop it. It was just a reaction. And it was so painful. And I was in my cave, so no one could hear me screaming, ah! ah! And I didn't have any medicine in the cave. I didn't have a mobile phone, so I couldn't call a doctor. And I did think of the nearest telephone was down where not the main hall, but the kitchen, the dining room building. There was a phone in there. So I thought, I suppose I could crawl down, to where the phone is. Ah! Ah! And I don't know what the monks would have thought or done. And I know that at times, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but sometimes the ambulance service is not as good as it is in Hong Kong or in Jakarta even, I think. Because I know once when we had a visitor and they were going a bit crazy, and so we called the PET team, that's a psychological emergency team, and it took them forever to get here. When they actually arrived, they said, was this girl violent? I said, well, she did throw a cup at me. No, that's violent. So I'm sorry, we can't attend to her until the police come. And so we had to call the police. And the police only came from Armadale. But even the police didn't know the way to the monastery. They came all the way by Serpentine Dam, which is an hour and a half. And so by the time they came here, then the psychological emergency team, they were waiting at the gate with their headlights on so that the police could actually see them. But they'd been waiting so long, the batteries in their car were all dead. And then the police said, oh, we can't put her in our car, it has to be in your car. But we've got no electricity, the batteries are dead, our car's not working. So I had a big argument for about half an hour, and eventually the police said, okay, we can take you in our car. And that was about 2 or 3 hours since she arrived. And I always remembered that if I called the ambulance, I'd probably be dead before it arrived. So calling an ambulance in that time of night, in that situation, was not really viable. So I was stuck in my hut. Ah! It does wake you up and get people's attention. And so again, I don't know why I use this as a last resort instead of a first resort. I decided to meditate. How can you meditate when you've got such pain in your stomach? And to the point it makes you almost scream. And so how you do that is kindness, mindfulness and kindness, what we call kindfulness. So I could feel the contraction in the stomach coming and the pain. You see it coming and you were just kind to it, let it be. Not try and control it, not try and get afraid of it. We must love it. And this is the body doing what the body does. It's not a reaction or an overreaction. And what I noticed was the feeling, the pain of the contraction was getting slightly less. Only a little bit less, but it showed me that something was actually working. When I wasn't afraid of it, not reacting to it, the pain got less. Every contraction, every sort of spasm, it got easier to bear. And every time there was a contraction, it was easier, and then easier, only a little bit, and then easier. And after half an hour, it didn't hurt at all. And that was the end of the food poisoning. And even, I don't know, I know this happens. I know you've done it before. But when it actually happens to you, even as me, like monk, it just really inspires me. That's what this meditation could do. It was real food poisoning. I can't imagine this. And really painful. But then the pain got a little bit less every time, just with kindness. What kindness is? It relaxes everything. You don't overreact. In fact, you underreact. And everything gets nice and peaceful and still. And then just can meditate. Deep meditations. And after you come out of the meditation, there was no sort of spasms left at all. All that food poisoning had vanished. I do know enough about medicine to say, how on earth could it vanish? There was some bacteria which shouldn't be in my stomach, and that was causing this huge overreaction. What happened to that bacteria? And biology wasn't my major, it was mostly in physics and maths. But then I did do a little bit of biology and science. And I just remember looking at these viruses or bacteria in a microscope. And when you look at them, they're just like little blobs. But they always have these tentacles coming out of them. And so I imagined straight away that what had happened to the bacteria which had caused my spasms in the stomach and this pain and this food poisoning, that all of those bacteria were all still, and they'd crossed their tentacles in full lotus. Some were just having their tentacles just in the tummy, just in their tummy, not my tummy. Well, they're all in my tummy, but in their own tummy, in front of their own tummy, and just meditating peacefully. Because they can't just vanish away. I thought as I taught my stomach hurting bacteria how to meditate. There's no more pain. Can you do that with COVID? Imagine the COVID bacteria, if you get COVID. Imagine them just in your sinuses somewhere, wherever they are, or in the lungs or wherever, and imagine these little blobs, and they're all meditating peacefully. So peacefully they're not really active anymore. They're still there, so you can still take a COVID test and getting a few days off work. But at no cost to your health. So anyhow, that's my biological theory of illness. But certainly it's wonderful to know that it can be done, which takes away a lot of fear. So I can stay in my cave, and whatever is happening to me, I don't need to have an emergency button. I don't need to shout, and no one could hear me anyway. Sometimes people say that, in your cave, Ajahn Brahm, can't we have like a key outside so you can open the doors to check on me if you think I'm dead? No. You disturb so many deep meditations if you try that. So I said, no. Because I said that I'll just meditate. If I'm sick, meditate. If I'm dying, meditate. And that will be my mausoleum. Is that allowable? I'll just die in there. Is that a good thing? You say yes? Oh, why don't you try and break the door down with a chainsaw or with a jackhammer to rescue me? No. I thought the Buddhist International Foundation in Hong Kong cared about me. No, that's the best way of caring about me. So anyway, where was I going with all of this? I don't know. So these are the benefits of the meditation and just how you can deal with actually the fear of sickness. One of the first times which I dealt with what to me felt like intense pain, and that was when it's only a toothache, but the one evening when I got that toothache, it felt really intense. There's no way I could lay down and sleep at night. It was just torturing me. And in those days, these monasteries were really poor. So I went to the medicine box. I had a big medicine box with a big red cross on it. And the red cross, that meant it wasn't like a Red Cross health. It was a red cross meaning there's nothing inside. It was empty. We had no medicines. And so I couldn't take any medicine. So then I tried doing walking meditation. I thought, walking meditation, you can get your energies up and the blood starts flowing, that may heal something. But what I found when you're in quite intense pain, you can't do walking meditation, you do running meditation. You're going really fast because you're kind of desperate. And then I tried to sit down to meditate, but I couldn't do it. The pain was too much. And then I tried chanting. You know all this chanting we do? I don't know if you believe in that chanting. So at that time I didn't. I was a Westerner. I was exploring Buddhism. So I tried it anyway, because I was desperate. When you're just in such pain, you try anything. I had to stop after about 5 minutes. You know why? Because I was just so agonized, I was shouting the chants. It was about 11 o'clock at night, or close to midnight. I waked the whole monastery up, and the village next door as well. I was so loud. And after shouting the chants for a while, that didn't work. And you got to one of these wonderful places in life. If you get to this place, it's a gorgeous place. There's so much insight to be got in this place. The place which Ajahn Chah used to describe, you can't go forward, you can't go back, you can't stay still. You're desperate. All of your ways of escape are all tried and nothing works. And in this forest monastery, no telephones, no emergency services, such a long way from where you came from, where you grew up. Didn't know what to do. But then, there was some one word I always recalled, from all of those talks which I listened to in UK and from Ajahn Chah in Thailand, a kind of a magic word, maybe the most repeated word in meditation. Let go. Simple. It was so simple I didn't really realize its power. Have you heard that word let go before? Have you done let go? That was the first time which I did it. Because I had to, I was desperate. Let go. And I cannot exaggerate what happened. I cannot deceive you on things like this. I couldn't live with myself if I did. Instead, actually it's easy not to live with yourself, because in Buddhism there's no self anyway, and you're always in this moment, so that's not really a problem, is it? Okay, I think I'm bamboozling you again. Too early in the morning, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm not going to exaggerate at all. What happened next? I mean, really next, the next moment. All the pain vanished, and you're in bliss. Kind of shocks you. How on earth does this happen? You can't even believe it. But there you are, your mind is just so happy and joyful. And there's no pain at all in your jaw. And just, how come this happens? But it did. And so I carried on walking meditation for a while. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:15. Went up to my kuti, sat meditation, and I thought, it's getting late, I should lay down and go to sleep. And I lay down, and I did go to sleep for half an hour. And when I woke up, I had a toothache. It had come back, but it was so mild. Not a problem at all. And then went to the chanting and all this other stuff. But it was the power of being able to let go and how amazing it was. And that gave me a kind of confidence. It doesn't matter how much things hurt. You can let go and it doesn't hurt at all. I overcame my fear of pain. Even the deep pain of when you're sick or when you're about to die. Or the pain, as I said the other day, of a woman giving birth to a kid. You could let go. Once you knew how to do that, you weren't afraid anymore. It became easier to do many, many times. I remember even the small things, like going to give blood. In the blood bank in northeast Thailand, every time the monks went in there, they never gave you any anaesthetic. They said, usually anaesthetic, and then they put the big needle in to draw the blood. They donate blood. And they said, you're forest monks. So they just put the big needle in anyway. I remember her going to see one of these monks with Ajahn. He had some sort of fever, and he had a drip in his arm, to put the plasma back into his bloodstream because he was losing so much. And we found out he did that himself. He didn't get a nurse to do it. He just bunged it in, hung it up, and that was it. I don't know, could you do that? Why not? It might save your life. Saves a lot of money and a lot of time. And you get in just the right place. Forest monks were supposed to be tough. It's not toughness, it's wisdom. Knowing how to deal with things like unavoidable pain. And that meant that the fear had gone. And when the fear goes with enduring pain, the next fear you have to overcome is fear of enduring too much pleasure. That kind of just makes me just giggle, because that was one of the last things I expected as a monk, to have to endure pleasure. Pretty cool, isn't it? Deep meditation, you're having the time of your life. Applause. But anyway, back to where I started on this talk. I don't know why I keep wandering around all over the place, and I'm supposed to teach you how to focus. But the little kids, okay, imagine you're the Buddha, no fear of pain at all. Not worried about sicknesses or ill health or banging your leg and it's really hurting. It's easy. All those fears are gone. And all those reasons why you worry or why you think, why you have to do stuff, it's all disappeared. Imagine how free you feel. Just like when I said, I went on that walking around in Thailand, they called it Tudong, Dutanga, the Charika in Sri Lanka. You can go wherever you want. No compulsion, no force, nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to be. All those hard work of studying to try and pass exams to be somebody. And that's why sometimes in the world you ask yourself, who are you? And, okay, I have a master's degree from Cambridge. That's an MA. Even though it was science, they're so old-fashioned, they still call it a Master of Arts, even though it's science. So it's still an MA. And later on, a couple of years ago, they gave me this Australian medal for the service which I've done over here in Australia. So now I'm an MAAM. What does that say? Ma'am. So please call me ma'am. That's much better than having 2 BAs. Then you become Baba. So why do you spend all this time worrying about those things? If you're the Buddha, you don't have any qualifications. You don't need to pass any exams. I think that other thing which I said to you, I think I said it to you, that if I went to teach meditation in a university, they'd probably stop me. I'm not qualified. I didn't get a degree or a piece of paper. Because that happened to this guy. He was a clinical psychiatrist from the US, and they talked him into coming to Australia to teach the most modern advances in clinical psychiatry, in the US. They wanted him to teach that over in Sydney. And as soon as he arrived, they checked and said, I'm sorry, sir, you're not qualified. But look, I'm a professor at some big university, I think it was Yale or somewhere, and I teach and I lecture on clinical psychology. And the clinical psychologists at your university invited me to come here. I'm sorry, sir, this is our law. you have to be qualified first of all. And he said, well, what do I have to do to qualify? So here's 2 books, read them, study them, we'll give you a test on them in about a week's time. And this American just arrived. What does it say on that book? Who wrote it? I wrote it, said this guy. You mean I have to study my own book and take a test on it? Yes. Do they treat migrants like that in Hong Kong? They do? Yeah, okay, well, I'm not going to question. I get into trouble next time I get into Hong Kong. Oops. So, there's a similar story to this about migrants. And this was a migrant who came to Australia. He was a doctor, a medical doctor, in his home country. And when he actually arrived in Australia, they said, well, again, we cannot really recognize your qualifications. So in the meantime, we were trying to get some letters so maybe you can be recognized. In the meantime, just take a rest or get a job or something. So he got a job in a building site. He was young, he was fit, and so he had something to do. And he worked really hard in the building site on Monday. He never got paid. So that was really weird. But still he worked on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Still never got paid. And he was getting pretty upset. Even Thursday he worked hard, never got paid. And he thought, in Australia they just exploit migrants. Because the migrants don't know what the rules are. They work really hard, don't get any pay at all. And so on Friday morning, he didn't want to go to work at all. His wife said, you better go to work, you're not doing anything useful here, at least it keeps you occupied. Okay. So on Friday he went to work, he didn't work much at all. But he was called to the boss's office and got given this big pay packet. And he didn't even need to stay all day, everyone else left early. So he left early as well. When he went home, he told his wife, I finally figured out how things work in Australia. From now on, I'm only going to go to work on Fridays. And I say that story because sometimes you're meditating, you get a wonderful meditation this morning. I think you cracked it, now you know how to meditate. And the next meditation you do, hopeless. You say, what's going on? I say, look, when you have a good meditation, it's like getting your pay packet on Friday. You're not just getting paid for what you just did this morning on Friday. What day is it today? It's payday. You're getting paid for all the meditation you've done on so Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday last week. It's building up until you get your paycheck. And for those of you who haven't had a paycheck yet, please don't worry. The check is in the mail. Eventually it comes, but that's one of the reasons why that people feel what's going on. They just had a lovely meditation. The next meditation is not so easy. This is all it is. You have to build up and build up and build up your idea of what peace is. Remember what peace is, just like those kids remembering the Buddha, sitting down there, and you get some idea what it is. And as they do this Buddha-anusati, imagining what it's like to being a Buddha, and they get so peaceful. Not again just the kids, but the teachers, and also the parents as well. They told all the other people who invited me to Singapore how great this Buddha imagination was. And so that night I was going to give another talk somewhere and do some meditation first. They all forced me to do another Buddha meditation. They all loved it. It really works. And anyway, the last thing for the kids, obviously, not just where the Buddha got enlightened, but where the Buddha passed away in Kusinara, between the twin sal trees. And so I told the kids, now this is how the Buddha passed away. He lay down on his right side, just with his hands underneath his head, his right foot over the left foot, nice and comfortable, and then he disappeared. So kids, try that. And that was a quiet time for these kids. They all fell asleep. They did. They didn't parinibbana, but at least all the teachers were very, very happy that they got some quiet time. And we'd also taught the kids about the place where the Buddha was born, where he got enlightened, and where he passed away. And that was much better than showing photos or even videos or giving talks, because they could actually feel it. So they got much more of the information. And that's the same with you. You know sort of the information, the words, the descriptions, but actually to feel it, what it's like. Just like many of you, you're so keen to see my cave. You've heard about it. Now you've actually been in it. All the words, even photos or descriptions, is nowhere near as powerful as actually being inside of it. Did many of you have the opportunity to cross your legs and meditate in there? Excellent. Because a lot of you will find it's just so easy. There's a lot of power in there. And it's interesting, I say it's got power in it. Well, what are you talking about? Yeah, there's electricity, electric power, but it's not that. That's from the main supply. There's always something else. And there's places in this world. And sometimes I ask myself why. That I feel so much energy, really good energy. And I get the type of piti, that's the joy, which makes you cry. One of the times which I experienced that was in that beautiful Buddha statue. We haven't got a copy here. And for the Dhammacakka Buddha statue. Actually, that's on the front cover of this new book which is coming any day now from Gerald. It's been published, it's on its way here by the mail. The check's in the mail. This is a book. And that Buddha statue, every time I've seen photos of it, I thought it was the most beautiful Buddha statue I've ever seen. That's my perception of it. But then when I did go to Sarnath outside of Benares on a pilgrimage, I just made a point, I'm going to go and see this, the real one. And when you went into the museum outside of Sarnath, there was no sort of guards, or there was a guard there, one, not really paying any attention. And I didn't know enough Hindi to actually ask him, where is that Buddha statue? So I just started exploring, not knowing where the heck it was. And it wasn't a big sort of museum, but I remember just turning one of the corners, and there it was at the end of the hall. I couldn't help myself. Just the tears started rolling out of my eyes. It was gorgeous. As I went right up to it, of course bowed 3 times. To me it was one of the most beautiful Buddha statues I'd ever seen. And this was a real one, not a photograph. And I stayed there for a while and meditated. And the next time I went to pilgrimage to India, I told all of my disciples who were coming with me, so we're going to see a Buddha statue, which I can't help it. It just makes me cry with joy, with bliss. And so this time I had tissue papers ready. I did. And as soon as I turned the corner, there was this most gorgeous, beautiful Buddha statue. And again I bowed and cried. And the third time, this was the last time I went to see it, I was really prepared. Everybody else had lots of tissues as well. And when I turned the corner, it was covered with a tarpaulin. You couldn't see it. They were doing renovations. And when I'd built myself up with expectations, I realized this was Mara telling me, never expect anything, Ajahn Brahm. So I was disappointed. But the guy doing the renovations, he was like a local. He couldn't understand English, but he looked at me and he took the tarp off. That was really sweet. Unexpected bliss. But it's not just in those places. I remember this lady when, we took her to Bodh Gaya. She was English, from Cornwall. And when I told her, the briefing, this is what to expect. There's some places got so much energy, it just makes you cry. So happy, so easy to meditate there. And when I told her that in the briefing before we left to come to Bodh Gaya, apparently she told her husband, this crazy monk. Now she was from UK. There's many old buildings there in UK. She's been to all these castles and other places and said, these are just historic, that's all. What's he saying about crying? And when she went into the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya the first time, just after landing, we went there just for a quick visit. She was walking inside the Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya, and then totally unexpected, and she wept. And so that evening, she actually came to my room with her husband and bowed and asked forgiveness. She said, I thought you were crazy. Never realized the power of some of these places. And so, whether it's in that cave or in the hall, I've mentioned that to many of you. If you can walk inside the hall, go towards the front and meditate. If you haven't had any good meditations here, that's really likely that will just inspire you. It does inspire you so deeply, so peaceful. It's so easy to meditate in there. And other places which I like, when I go to India, I always go up to the Vulture's Peak. That's my favorite. That's where the Buddha actually meditated. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if you know why it's called the Vulture's Peak, but when I went up there the first time, there was a rock outside. It was shaped like a vulture. It's been so popular to go up there nowadays that that's been chipped. It doesn't look like the same obvious vulture as it used to do in the old days. It was just a natural rock, and that's just kind of what it looked like. And then you can go inside the cave just underneath where the Buddha sat meditation. That's freaky. I don't mean freaky like being scary, but no, of course that's got huge amounts of power. When people say, how come it's got such power? Look, there are these heavenly beings. I mentioned a couple of stories about them. And these heavenly beings, they live in a different time scale. And some of these heavenly beings, 500 years to them is like one day of a human being. So it's only like 5 days ago the Buddha was there. It's, just 5 days ago. Do you remember what you had for lunch here? You might have done. You might have remembered that. So yesterday you went over to Bodhinyana, the cave. But it's not that long ago. And those heavenly beings will still be there. You may think I'm crazy. Remember, I'm a theoretical physicist. To me, the evidence is compelling. So because of that, you go to those places, they've got lots of power. And if you find places like that to meditate, my goodness, it's just so easy. So some of these places you go in India and you sit down there. I remember just outside of Visali there was an old chaitya. I remember sitting down there, it's just so easy to get into deep meditation. It's like everything is supporting you. That's one of the reasons why it's great to go to places where many very good monks and nuns have meditated before, where there's lots of, please excuse me, heavenly beings still there. And they kind of make you feel safe and make you let go and make you become really, really peaceful. You don't have to do anything. Just like those little kids. Imagine you're a Buddha. Just imagine. Nothing left to do. Nothing to strive for. Absolutely nothing. Nothing to worry about ever again. You sit down there, you feel so incredibly free. All those burdens of your life, gone. Any bad karma from the past, or any bad deeds done to you, you're free. I better stop it, I'm getting inspiring myself. Sometimes that's one of my problems, honestly. I'm not exaggerating. Sometimes when you really get into something like that, you really get off on it, and you just want to, okay, bye-bye everybody, I'm going to close my eyes and just get deep into meditation. It kind of pulls you in. That's like you go to the meditation hall over in Bodhinyana, you sit down there, you think you're going to sit there for 5 minutes, and it just pulls you in. You can't resist it. It's gorgeous. So anyway, I hope that you experience some of those things while you're here. I know that my time is up, and so and for you, you can carry on meditating if you wish. Go for a walk, go to the toilet, whatever it is. Oh, sorry, not the toilet. We don't have toilets in this retreat centre, do we? What do we have? Restrooms. And we don't have donation boxes either. What do we have? And we call them letting go boxes. I better be careful what I say. I don't want to be too scared to put anything in there. Or maybe put some crumbs of bread in there for the spiders. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, very good. So anyway, thank you all for listening. You'll be disappeared this afternoon? Yeah. So when will I see you again? Tomorrow morning. No, you won't. Yeah. No la mara. Yeah. So you can't get rid of me, so I'll see you tonight. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. Thank you for listening.
Indonesia juga kalau bisa kita berangkat jam 1.30. We will also depart at 1:30. Oh, okay, now, okay. So if we don't see you, we learn from Ajahn, we let go.
So you're actually going to the airport?
No, we're going to Dhammasara in the Malacca as well.
Okay, so different bus.
Yes.
Who has the best bus?
Hong Kong group.
So you can swap.
No.
At least you thought about it for 1 second. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. And so I'll see you this evening.
Yeah.
Bye.